So when it comes to the subject of immigration, this immigration debate is nothing new. I was a senior in high school and decided that I was going to try my hand at debate. And I actually loved debate and really enjoyed it, enjoyed doing it. And our topic, my senior year for states, was immigration in the United States and how we can go about stopping it. And we talked about building a wall. We had another philosophy of building a fence, setting up the National Guard. And I mean, that was a long time ago. So this has been going on for decades. And now it's really becoming a main issue in other countries as we look at Europe and we look at Greece and Finland, and they're all building walls or fences or trying to do something to keep immigration at a minimum because of so many people coming in. And then you have the Ukraine and what was happening there. So now we have immigration and immigrants coming into other countries from the Ukraine. And it's just kind of crazy kind of what's happening now with people moving everywhere and people migrating into other countries. And we're trying to figure out what to do. And then because of the immigration coming in, we're talking about housing prices going up. We're looking at the welfare system and seeing what's happening there. And there's a lot to think about and there's a lot to contemplate when it comes to this. And even children coming across the borders without parents, it's concerning when you see it, but at the same time you get it. Look, if I can put my child on a boat and give them a better life, in our mentality, that's hard to conceive, but we're not living the way that they're living day by day, starving. And maybe somebody in America will take care of my child, and maybe my child will be able to get on their feet and get us to America so we can have hope as well. And that's kind of what's going on here. And that's really what's been taking place as we see this transpiring, not just here in America, but in other affluent countries around the world. And what is the answer? You know, I wish I had the answer today, but if we had the answer, we wouldn't be debating it decades later like we were centuries ago, or I should say decades ago, maybe, and probably centuries even. So what do we do? You know, if immigration wasn't allowed, then we wouldn't have even some of the Italian restaurants, and I wouldn't have some of my Italian friends that I have now in West Virginia, because West Virginia wasn't real concerned about paperwork. They just needed people to come and work the mines, and a bunch of Italians came over to the United States. They came to West Virginia and they started working in the mines. And from that, we have a culture today of pepperoni rolls and everything else. So now, what do we do? You know, as Christians, that's a great debate. How we handle this and how we go about this and how do we respond to this. I met a man at a Bible conference not too long ago who's a pastor here in the United States, and he was in a country that there was a great war going on, and many people were fleeing the country, and people were running for their lives as refugees, and he stayed in his country, but because of the army and because of the oppression and because of the Civil War, there was very little food. And one night he heard his neighbor the child screaming and crying in hunger, and he just couldn't take it anymore. So as a young man, he went out into the woods and he found some food and he brought it back and he gave it to this lady and to her son. Well, a lot of people saw him go out and they turned him in, saying he was trying to turn against the curfew and that he was trying to go against the army that had that city under control. And so they put him in prison. And there were two other people put in prison with him, and he was sitting in his prison cell as they came and got the one man, took him out and killed him. And they came and got another man, took him out and killed him by way of firing squad. And then they came back in to get him. And as they grabbed him to pull him out, another man came and said, "Stop, we've got a problem. He can be released to go." Well, come to find out that the woman that he saved and the food that he got for that child was good friends with the chief of police. She found out what had happened, sent word to the police department, and right before he was executed, he was saved by her word and what he had done for her. So needless to say, he ended up becoming a refugee, going to another country, staying in a refugee camp. And while in that refugee camp, he heard about these Bible classes going on. So he went and they were playing cassette tapes of Grace to You from John MacArthur. And by listening to those tapes, he ended up getting saved and then having a hunger for God and the Word of God and filling out paperwork to try to get to the States to go to John MacArthur School. And even though that didn't work out, he ended up getting into another Christian school, going off to seminary, and now he's a pastor here in the States, and just a wonderful man and a wonderful story. Talk to another pastor who's pastoring a church and has a great ministry in another country. And his country was under a civil war. And his family also became refugees, but his mom missed home and got very sick, and they thought she was going to die, and she wanted to die in her home country, so they came back in. And his best friend, though, stayed in this refugee camp. And while his best friend was there, he ended up getting saved. And then when the Civil War stopped and it was safe to come back into their country, his best friend came into his country and started sharing with him the gospel. And as he heard the gospel and he heard about Jesus Christ, he ended up leaving Buddhism and he turned to God from the idols that he was worshiping. And from there now, his family's gotten saved. They have a church and they have a school and they have a wonderful ministry going on. And I hope to get there in a few months to be with them and to minister to them. And it was all because of a refugee and somebody ministering to a refugee camp. So as Christians, as we think about immigration, and we can get on this immigration debate and we can talk about this and what we're going to do and how we need to stop it. But the point I think we've got to understand is heaven is made up of all nations. And we can't turn our back on the fact that these people have souls. Okay, they are searching for hope. They are searching for food. They are searching for a better future. But we have the answer to a better future. We know here in the United States it might not be the best here, okay, but it's a lot better than what they have. But we can also then take the gospel to them and show them that no matter what they have a far better eternity ahead of them. So as we are having these debates, or we're reading these articles, or we're going into a political season where this is definitely going to be a topic of conversation, as Christians, please don't forget that we have the responsibility to go into all nations, right? To go to our Jerusalem, to our Judea, and to our Samaria, and to the uttermost. And honestly, we don't have to go very far to do that today.